It is Fire Prevention Week, and to tell us, or to help us keep our families safe, we have Fire Marshal Ryan Erickson in the studio with us today. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So this is the week, this year's Fire Prevention Week. But what are we talking about? Like, there's always something special to talk about. This year it's what?
This week, October 3rd through the 9th, is Fire Prevention Week again, and this year it's Learn the Sounds of Fire Safety.
Okay, so what are those sounds?
Yeah, so what we're really focusing on this year is smoke alarms and carbon monoxide alarms, and then the sounds that those devices make in order to either wake you or warn you that there's a problem.
And there's kind of a difference too, because a lot of times, you know, we have our smoke detectors might go off. I mean, maybe they're going off in the kitchen, and that's something simple. If you know it, it's smoky, whatever, we waft. I know this has happened in my house. You just kind of waft it away. Sometimes those smoke detectors, they go off in the middle of the night. But if you hear, there's a distinct difference. So it's a beeping and a chirping, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you hear a chirp, every so often you hear a chirp, that the alarm is trying to tell you that it needs attention. And so oftentimes it's the battery. And we push a message every year about change your clock, change your battery as a reminder, but you definitely want to change those batteries at least once a year to make sure that they're working.
And so the carbon monoxide detectors are the same?
Yeah, very similar. Your carbon monoxide detectors, you can have alarms for carbon monoxide that plug directly into an outlet, but both smoke alarms and carbon monoxide alarms have a backup battery, so if you were to lose power, you would still have coverage in your house. And those could do the same thing, where they'll give you a chirp to tell you that you need attention to that detector, and so again, it could be the battery. The other thing to know is that both smoke alarms and carbon monoxide alarms have an end of life, and so they can chirp to tell you that. And if you flip it over when you pull it off the wall and you look real close and get out a magnifying glass, you can see the date on it, and that'll tell you whether or not you need to replace it.
Huh. I better check. We better check ours the next time. So really, the next time you're checking or changing those batteries, that's when you should look at that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so if you live in a house that maybe you haven't touched them in over 10 years, that's typically the expiration date. So it'd be a good time to pull it off and take a look there.
Okay. So what about the beeping? When we hear beeping, that's a true emergency, right?
Right. So, it's typically 3 beeps in a row. And so your
Okay.
smoke alarm, when that's alarming, it's telling you there's a problem. And so, it could be from cooking. That device is working, so it's telling you that it's smelling smoke, and so you can clear that. If you're ever wondering what your device sounds like, on the front of them, there's typically a button that you can push.
Okay, yeah.
And that'll test it. Some of the newer ones, so if you had that issue in the kitchen, you can actually hit a hush button, and then that'll silence it temporarily, because the last thing you want to do is pull it down and then take the battery out and disable it.
Right. So also we need to explain to our families what to do in these situations.
Yeah, absolutely. The last time you want to figure out what to do is when the emergency is happening.
Yeah.
So, and you really want to train your body into, both your mind and your body, of what to do when you have an emergency. You need to do that ahead of time. So create a home escape plan, work with your family to practice that, especially children. That way they know what to do. They can react to the sounds that they hear. And if you have any sort of special needs in your house, then that's the perfect time to kind of work through those special concerns too.
Right. And there are some people, like you said, with special needs, but sensory, physical disabilities. Are there certain like noises or anything? How are they, especially if it's sensory, how are they to know?
Right, so there's, depending on what you need, for example, if you're hard of hearing, there are devices that can either flash light, there's some that will even shake a bed. Recently they came out with smoke alarms that actually are a slightly lower pitch that they found are much more effective. It's kind of like the old alarm clock where it buzzes instead of has a real high pitch beep that a lot of people as you get older maybe don't hear. So those are also something to look into. But depending on what you need, there's a lot of resources out there that you can still be alerted in the event of emergency.
And where do people get some of those devices then for special circumstances?
Yes, some are more common than others. So like the strobe alarm, you can buy those at most hardware stores. But as you get into kind of the bed shakers, some of those, they're more specialized. So it'd take a little bit more research to get to that. And obviously we can be a resource to help put people in touch with those too.
Yeah, that's good to know. I would say, probably a website or something is going to share that information.
Yep, nationally, Fire Prevention Week will get you right to this campaign, and our website's fargofire.com.
Okay, so any other tips about fire prevention or just any type of fire prevention?
Yeah, so having a working smoke alarm reduces your chance of dying in a house fire by half.
Okay.
And the key to that is working smoke alarms. So that's really why we want to use this time to remind us to test them, to make sure the batteries are working and that we know they're there and protecting us while we sleep.
Yeah, very, very important, because as we've all known, watching the news, we've had lots of house fires and garage fires and so forth too, so very dangerous, and this is very, very important.
Yep, heating season's coming up, so the other half of this is carbon monoxide alarms, and any fuel burning appliance is something that can produce that, so those alarms will, again, protect from that because it is colorless and odorless gas.
Yeah, very important information. Thank you very much, Ryan. Appreciate you being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. All right, coming up on today's show, we have your daily dose of motivation.